It gives me pleasure to introduce Dr. who's our guest speaker today. Dr. Camacho was an undergraduate at UC San Diego, and in fact is one of our star alumni. And he went on to get his PhD in aerospace and mechanical engineering at USC, and then did his postdoctoral training at Stanford University in mechanical engineering. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. I'm very happy to be here. Go ahead and clap if you want, please. Yeah, so I was here 15 years ago already, and as an undergraduate, but I started at community college. I transferred, so yeah, that's I have some slides on this. Stop working now. Oh, I know why. Click. So yeah, I graduated 2001 from high school. You know about Mount Sac? Go Mounties. You went there, or you know about it?
I went there.
Oh, you went there?
Yeah.
You went there?
I'm next to it. Or
Oh,
I
you
lived
Walnut?
next to it.
Walnut and West
Chino
Covina,
Hills.
Chino Hills. Yeah, it's a super big community college. So anyone who lived there, they either went there or they know about it, passed by it all the time. I was there early 2000s for 3 years. Worked at UPS nights, and then I did some of my classes at Mount Sac to try to transfer. So I eventually did transfer to UC San Diego, and I was in the program during 2007. So and then I took another year after that. So it took me 7 years altogether to go from high school to get my bachelor's degree. And so what's interesting though is I really like school. McNair was an awesome opportunity to make my interest clear, both that. How do you mute everyone here? Oops, I have to go here. Participants, more.
Click on the talking.
The click on the talking. Oh yeah, yeah. How do I mute everyone?
You can just mute it on individual.
All right, mute yourselves, everyone. Yeah, okay, so I really like school. McNair was really good to show, and I had friends who went both ways. It was an awesome research experience. You learned about this different aspects of research in graduate school, and it was good for some people because they knew they did not want to do that. For me, it was good because I knew that it was clear that I did want to do that. And so that opened up doors for me to be competitive to get into University USC. I'm back from the LA area. So I went back there and did a PhD in mechanical engineering. They call it AME department, Aerospace Mechanical Engineering. And then I liked school so much, and I didn't really want to look for a job. So I just stayed in the lab, and I went to another lab that's called Postdoc, Postdoctoral researcher, which is when after you get your PhD, your doctorate degree, for several reasons that people do that. Some, it's because they really like their work, which most people is, that's what I did. Some, it's because they can't find another job, because PhD is so specialized. Sometimes it's hard to find a job that you want. So they just go to a kind of a transition period as a postdoc. And C, if you really like school and you want to stay at the university and you want to become a professor yourselves, many departments or many types of professors, the only way to become competitive is to do even more work called postdoc, like positions or postdoc projects. That's what I did. For my reasons, I definitely like being in the lab. I wasn't sure I wanted to become faculty, but I use it also to kind of expand my expertise and to shift my specialties with more time in the lab. So that's what I did. And now, after this Stanford, San Diego State University was my first real job ever since UPS and out of high school. So I worked at UPS at community college, and then I did a lot of side hustles, a lot of internships, but this was like my first full-time job. So that's a 15-year process. But like I'll discuss today, I'm one of the lucky ones who was really clearly interested in this pathway, and I just enjoyed the whole process. Not every, yet the first step is to find out if you like this process. Okay, so like one thing I like about it, one perk is that you get to travel in many cases, depending on whether your lab has the resources to send you to the conferences and things like that, or some collaborations. Like before COVID, China, they spent a lot of money sending professors, like if you had a colleague in China, they had the resources to send you over there to go and like discuss in person things and to show you around. So I did that a couple of years ago. That was my second time actually. Okay, so that's about me. About you guys, I kind of know you guys in the sense that I was in your seat, in your position at one time, 15 years ago or so. And what I know about you is you guys have a lot of valuable life experience that not other students in this not in this program have. And it's valuable experience. And the good news is that right now, every top university, a lot of top institutions in the US, they are looking for this experience. They want people like you to join their ranks as professors. And they realize that this is good for the part, good for them, good for their institution, good for the students, good for win-win for everyone. And through the McNair, you're in the step in the right direction already, and you are already competitive. You guys are already on the right track. You are capable and belong into these top positions at these top universities and these top departments, top labs, top research, everything. You guys are on the right track for that. Through the McNair program, these faculty mentor program and all that stuff is a good progress to build up these different skills and experiences. So that's what's gonna, if you choose to go in this direction, which is a big choice, which is hard to determine, you guys are gonna be able to succeed in that pathway, even though it is hard. So yeah, this background is valuable and sought after. And for the next generation of faculty, you are in the position to pursue that pathway and succeed in that pathway. And hopefully it is right for you. It's not right for everyone. It's going to take a long time to develop that, whether you are sure to follow this pathway, because it's a long process. It's a long pathway. I did it and I really liked every step, but it's very challenging. Okay, so what we'll talk about today is what is like university and college faculty. And the focus would be a certain type of faculty, which is what you might think, at UCSD, what you definitely think of as faculty. And these are tenured and tenure track faculty. And you may have encountered other types like lecturers and teaching professors and stuff. But the focus of this long journey is tenure and tenure track process. All of them are a long journey, and some of them pay more than others. The biggest the biggest reward to follow for these faculty positions is tenure track going to tenure, because after that you gain a lot of status and security and freedom. So the academic career path is how you get there from undergraduate, high school, graduate school. And once you do have a position as a tenure track faculty, how do you succeed? So you have to know like what it's called tenure process, what that is, how to succeed. This is all too much to talk about in detail for this hour or so, but hopefully I'll just give you a little introduction to all of these factors. Okay, so university college faculty at UCSD, it's one example of many different situations that occur in different institutions and universities across the US and the world. And for example, in UC San Diego, their tenure and tenure track faculty, they do much more than just teach your classes. Unfortunately, I remember that many of my professors, I was one of their lowest priorities. And they didn't even really know me or anything like that. Other schools are different. And okay, so here's a list of the different types. It's not a complete, but it's a pretty big list. I'm going to focus today on tenure and tenure track faculty, and we'll talk more about what that means. But there's also teaching faculty that have, teaching faculty, lectures, adjunct. Teaching faculty, depending on the details, it's more a secure, long-term, permanent position, but you're just focused on teaching. And research faculty is also a more secure, longer-term, medium-term position, but just focused on research. Professor of practice is also teaching faculty, but they emphasize their experience in research, in industry. It's kind of like a nice way for in some, whatever field it is, to have some industry flavor in their teaching. Lecturers, adjunct faculty. This is unfortunate. What some people get tied into is low paying, short term, kind of like gig work for lecturers. UC San Diego has them. Others, everybody has them. PhDs do, most of the lecturers are PhD nowadays, have a PhD. And the goal is to avoid that situation because it's short-term gig work. It should be, maybe if you need some short-term gig, that's fine. But this is not a long-term, it's not good for long-term. Visiting professor as well, for various reasons, professors go and visit many different reasons. They're just a visiting. So these are all focused on either teaching or research, including visiting professor. You can be visiting to do a research project and not visiting to do teaching. Tenure and tenure track faculty, what that means is pretty much they expect you to help run the university forever, for the rest of your career. And by running the university, it can, depending on the institution, it can mean to do administration stuff. That's one way. And here at UCSD, what it means is keep on building and maintaining research money, research projects, research students, research labs, to build the research capabilities. It's built upon these tenured and tenure track faculty. That's how UCSD has been growing for the last 40 years. They just have these top-notch world-leading professors. Why are they world-leading? Some of them are good teachers, but what UCSD has grown, the reason why they've grown is because they've been able to get outside resources and outside interest to build research. And that takes a lot of dedication, and it's the cornerstone of UCSD, and that's how other universities work as well. Okay, so tenure and tenure track faculty. Tenure track means that you're not tenured yet, and we'll talk about how you become tenured and what that means. So what you have to do is, depending on the field that you're in the sciences or in engineering, it's straightforward. You just have to bring in external money to carry out your research, to support your research, to build new labs, to build new projects, to train a lot of students, to make new discoveries. But then on other fields like humanities and arts and sciences, it's similar. You have to keep on training new students and keep on making new discoveries and adding more to the literature. It's just that there's not a lot of money for that. For sciences and engineering, there's literally like the Department of Defense, who has a ton of budget. There's Department of Health, who has a huge, who have tons of money. Unfortunately, the arts and humanities, there's less money available. So money is less of a factor in determining your progress, but you still have to put in some scholarly work, some creative activities, depending on the field that you're in. Also, many faculty, they bring in external funds for educational endeavors and enhanced activities. McNair would be one of them. And part of their job is to service, meaning that you help to do the to maintain day-to-day activities of the university, including hiring new faculty, hiring new staff, maintaining the curriculum of their degrees, and there's a lot of committees which are aimed at specific tasks for the to keep the university running. And then, of course, teaching is a part of it, and a part of that teaching is always you should as a good practice. All educators, all teachers should be constantly updating and working on their techniques and developing new subjects and things like that. So this is what we mean about how the university is built by tenure and tenure track faculty. This is a lot of commitments and dedication that requires to do all of these things well. And for these other specific positions, they don't contribute as much to that core, these aspects of the university. And that's why, like, it's kind of like the hardest of these jobs to get, and it's the more responsibilities. Which is industry takes more, but these positions are also mental. Okay, so what is tenure? It's a system that is carried out throughout the world. I think we got it from Europe. And it's simply a probationary system. It's probation, meaning that you have to prove yourself before you succeed and get the status of from tenure track to a tenure. And it's a 6-year period for the most part. And what you do is you get hired on this track in a certain department, and depending on the university, you have to jump through certain hoops, prove yourself. They say there's no quota, there's no numbers to fill, there's no hard requirements, but it helps. Sometimes there's pros and cons on looking at it that way, but you literally have to prove yourself to the university and to your colleagues at the institution over some time, mostly 6 years. And then after that, you get tenure if you're successful. And what does that mean? It means the simple definition is that you have secure employment for the rest of your life, and it's very hard to fire you. The university has to budget and plan to have these people for life. And the reason why they do that is because if you're a professor, they want you to be a thinker. You're literally paid to think. You're a scholar. You're paid to come up with ideas. And the idea is that if you have tenure, then you can be more risky with your thoughts, more risky with your ideas. Won't have to worry about your job. That's not true. You do always have to be considerate. You can't just come up with some, just basically you have to be, don't offend anyone, or don't be, just think within don't be too crazy, I guess. And so this system has these 3 ranks. Assistant professor means that you do not have tenure yet. That's the rank I am in yet. Oh, maybe next year I'll finish the process and I'll be associate professor, which means that I'm tenured, but I still need to prove myself a little bit to get the full rank of full professor. And that means a raise, and it means you have more, like you're eligible for more administration, more positions. Like within the university, there's certain responsibilities that get shared, and you need to have the rank of full professor to be able to do that stuff, things like that. It's a raise, of course, and it's also pride, because some people it takes longer to go to full professor because they have to maintain their production. And what do I mean by production? It depends on the university and the institution. Okay, so in your guys' position, you have not finished your undergraduate studies yet. So on this chart here, you have not even started the academic career pathway. It's a long pathway. So, and I think all of you can do it. It's just a matter of whether you're interested or not, or whether this appeals to you and whether this calls to you, your books. So yeah, like that's what the first question is, do you like school? If you like school, then maybe. Do you like teaching? If you like teaching, maybe this is a good idea, or like it might suit you. Do you love your books? I did. These are the questions I asked myself when I was going through the McNair program, and I actually started looking at industry positions, and I actually had an internship in industry, 2 different internships. One was at a pharmaceutical company nearby. That was awesome because it was my first time in a real lab as an intern, and it was super impressive. And I worked there for a while, like, this is my wife here, by the way, like 1 or 2 years. At UC, we were together at UCSD. I worked there for like 1 or 2 years, and over time, what I realized is that this job is a lab, it is science, but it's technical. What technical means is that you don't need a bachelor's degree to do it. Anyone can learn eventually this lab work, repetitive lab work. So that was one example of going into industry where it wasn't challenging. It was cool, I liked it, but it wasn't challenging. And then I got another more challenging internship where it wasn't a materials research lab at a company in Mira Mesa. And it was like, I'm very lucky that I had clear directions. All of these things pointed me in the clear direction of that I'd liked research, because this company was in industry, but they were playing with real like science and chemistry and physics. And they were all trying to figure out these new research problems for this materials application. So that was in industry. And what I learned was that I want to be I don't want to be in the lab at that level of helping the researchers. I want to be calling the shots as a researcher. How do we do that? You have to go to graduate school to get this more training and to learn how to do research more formally. So that's what I was asking myself. And another thing is that in a lot of industry jobs, you don't need your theories, you don't need your books. You just need to learn on the job. You can learn everything on the job, basically. You're never going to use your books again. You're never going to use your theory again, most of the time. And that's fine. And your education did serve a purpose, but most jobs, you're not specifically using that ever again, really, basically. It's good because, I mean, whatever you're studying now, it is going to serve a purpose in terms of just training your critical thinking, getting you good work habits, getting some credentials on paper. You need that a bachelor's degree most of the time, getting you some experience, aiming you at the directions that you're interested in. But you don't need these theories. I didn't like that. I was sad. I said, I like my books. I love my books. I like the theories. I love the science. And UC San Diego is a very good training for that. So that was clear for me. I wanted to go to graduate school. Okay, but that was the start here. That was 2008. I was barely starting this step here. And it took me 5 years to go from the bachelor's and PhD. So I kind of did both at the same time. So it took me 5 years. And then in engineering, I did chemical engineering. And in that field, and still after I finished my PhD, like I said, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to industry or I wanted to stay in academia. And I knew that I didn't want to look for a job, spend a lot of time looking for a job. Why? Because I knew that I had a postdoc position available if I wanted to. So I said, okay, I'll just continue my work and stay in academia. I mean, yeah, stay in the lab, stay in academia. So I did another 3 years as a postdoc. for me, it helped me to get more experience, get more, and change the directions a little bit. This is not required if you want to become a professor, but it's very common to do this postdoc. It's good and bad. Good because you do get more training and you do have a chance to diversify your topics a little bit, but it's just another 1 to 4 years, depending on the field that you're working in. And then for me, I really needed to look for a job. You know, I couldn't delay. Adulting was hard. I had to finally face real life eventually. So a halfway solution for me was to stay in school again. So I applied for faculty positions, and the process takes about a year. Not necessarily the applications, but you have, if the school year starts in the fall, you pretty much have to, all the job postings and all the beginning of the process starts a year before. So that's takes a long time. And here, you guys can't see it, is, or how do I hide this? Can I hide this?
You have a chat that's right there.
Oh, chat. Oh, I do have a chat. Oh, thanks. I almost ignored that. So why would a university prolong an assistant professor's promotion to full professor? We will talk about these considerations soon. Good question, but yeah, what are these considerations? There's a lot of them, and it depends on the situation. We'll talk about those next. So this is a long process. You don't get paid a lot. You don't go to graduate school for the money at the beginning, and you don't go to become a professor for the money. But it's really, if you love your books, if you love school, if you're just always wanted to go in this direction, if you just have a passion for the field, that's why you do this stuff. And I did it. I'm happy. It worked out for me. But you have to be sure that this is what you want to do. Okay. And as a matter of fact, once you start going in this direction of graduate school for the most part, and the PhD for the most part, humanities, arts, social sciences, they're pretty much expecting you to go from a PhD to become a professor somewhere. So history, economics, and arts, if you get a PhD in arts or these creative studies, you're pretty much the most straightforward job to go after this is a professor. But sciences and engineering are not like that. Maybe like 20–30% of PhDs in sciences and engineering become professors. The rest go to industry or start their own businesses and stuff like that. Okay. So again, a reminder that in this day and age, there is an explicit push to increase the diversity and representation and faculty at universities throughout the United States. It's an aggressive push, an aggressive drive, where there's many things happening, whether the goal is to hire more faculty with diverse backgrounds and diverse life experience. So one of the things that's pretty standard now, this just got introduced within the last couple of years, that if people are applying for a faculty position, one of the requirements of this faculty application for the job application is you have to write a statement saying on how you have experience fostering diversity or these experiences. That's a standard now. And then also, I guess no one will admit that there is actual number targets that these departments are looking for. Like for my College of Engineering, we have in some of our goals and plans, we want to hire at least, we want to have representation of like 20% of women and other underrepresented groups there. That's a formal plan, which is literally just like trying to explicitly go after this community. And now there's more and more also programs to help this group, these various groups to to keep in this direction and maintain this direction as well. So this is a big push and I like it, but I also think that coming from McNair program and all this stuff, I think that from internally and from the beginnings, all the way from high school and before, that there needs to be more awareness of these opportunities, of this, what this pathway is, and the pros and cons, because there's definitely some cons. I love it. There's a lot of pros, but there is some sacrifices at the beginning. And I think if more people knew of this pathway and these efforts, then faculty will have more representation, and that's a good thing for everyone. Okay, so how do you become, if you're applying for a faculty position, how do you become competitive? Well, it's similar to everything. How do you get into UCSD? You have to be good. You have to do these compete with these certain levels. How do you get into McNair? You have to be good and be at these certain levels. So for faculty, you have to have a strong CV. What is a CV? Anyone know what a CV is? CV? Know what a resume is? A resume is a CV is a fancy resume. So a resume should be one page. If you're applying for a job at a certain position, like entry level, you should have a one-page resume. CV, it's like you list everything. CV is if you have a lot of work experience, if you have a lot of, you're going for a more senior position, you're expected to have a long, it's called curriculum vitae. And it lists everything, your jobs, in the case of academics, all your papers, in the case of professors, all the classes you've taught. And depending on the position, depending on the things, you just fill it up with a bunch of details. And so that's a big resume, you know, like a senior resume. Resume on steroids type thing. So, and for academic positions, you just need to have a lot of, the quantity is important and also the quality of publications. We won't go into all those details about like what makes a good CV and stuff like that. But of course, how do you be competitive? You have a good resume, have a good CV. Second, you actually should be able to go to project yourself well. It's a job interview. I mean, it's literally you go through interviews like any other job, and you have to be able to communicate your passions and be confident. That takes time and skill. Graduate school is good for that. McNair is awesome for that type of stuff. So you guys are already on a good track. Hopefully you guys are, I mean, I know you guys are ahead in terms of getting this extra experience and practice. And if you maintain that, you'll be strong, a bit, even stronger and stronger in this type of thing. Selling yourself, interviewing yourself, communicating this type of stuff. And then if you want to become, so I have another chat here. Will our McNair research? Yes. Yes, depending on the project, maybe you'll get on a paper with your lab. That would be nice. If not, you could always list McNair Scholar on your CV as part of your awards. McNair Scholar forever, that's relevant. I have it there too, 15 years later. Good question. Okay. Yeah, so the CV, like just like a resume, awards, experience, and other stuff. McNair Scholar is going to be there forever. You can even like put faculty mentor program too to like squeeze it out. We need lines, stuff like that. Strategies. Okay. And for teaching, I mean, for faculty, there's always a teaching component. So getting experience teaching and mentorship in graduate school for PhD programs, that's also often included just in lab, helping your different levels in the lab if you become a senior a few years into your program, and or there's literally teaching requirements as part of graduate school as well. Okay, so a couple interesting things is that for faculty application, your GPA is no longer important. But it does come up, like if you have a good GPA, then you probably have some good scholarships, some good fellowships. So that comes up, and that's one way it comes up. And another way is that if you have a good GPA, you probably can talk science and you probably know your stuff. That's pretty clear if you know your stuff or not. And I've even gotten good at that. I'm getting better at that. And more experienced professors have experience with that. If they talk to someone, they know if they know their stuff or not. They don't need GPA for that. Oh yeah, this is a whole topic in itself about getting through a PhD program. How do you get through a PhD program? Luck and passion. Brains is the minimum requirement. You don't need the most tough brains, the most sharp brains. What you need is a good environment, a good workplace, some opportunities to thrive. Those don't always happen. And yeah, so PhD, it's circumstantial. You have to land in a good position in terms of healthy environment, plenty of opportunities. That's not guaranteed in a PhD program. Then to go to all the way to become a professor, you have to be totally obsessed nerd about this stuff. You have to that you get through basically a professional nerd. Which, that's one question to ask yourself: am I a professional nerd? Then maybe I should be a professor. And but for you, to keep in mind for you guys, this crowd here, we should be able to leverage our experience to succeed, regardless of the different things that can be thrown at us, different circumstances that can be thrown at us. I think a lot of McNair scholars have gone through that or have this experience and this abilities already. So like I said before, there is some luck required to land in a good position. And I think as McNair scholars, you guys made it happen despite, being first generation. It's very hard to get a direction being a first generation student. You guys managed to succeed in that position anyway. So you can keep that momentum going and just stay strong in graduate school and maybe use that to keep on going into faculty positions. So I think people like McNair scholars and other programs, they are well suited to be resilient and survive all these challenges, especially if they really are obsessed, which is definitely another factor that's required. So yeah, on that topic, from my experience, I know I'm super lucky that because it was super clear to me that I am a professional nerd, that I do like my theories, I do like my books, I am super interested in just always learning new things, and then almost like a preacher preaching my science and my physics and stuff to my students. I like all that stuff. So that's clear to me. And not only that, basically that I found some direction. It didn't have to be this direction. It could be any direction. The first step is to find it. If you want to be a professor, that's what happened to me. Luckily, it was clear to me. If you want to be in industry and work on this project, that's awesome. If you're lucky enough to that's clear in your mind. If you want to teach, like in high school, that's fine. Or just, I don't know, any other jobs you can think of. The hardest part is to realize what you would like to do. And then if you realize what your passion is, what your interest is, then it's very easy to follow that path after you determine that. So that's the first step. Okay. So there are some sacrifices. So PhD is worth it. And if you can survive it, it's going to be awesome eventually. But at first, when you graduate, there's less jobs available for you because you're so specialized that it's hard to find someone that needs your expertise. Harder. Masters, it's easy. Like if you go to get your master's, it's fast. to get your master's, and you can find even more jobs than were possible. PhD, it takes a long time, and it's your job opportunities are less in number. You're going to get more money eventually. You're going to you could call yourself doctor if you want, and that's cool. But at the beginning, it's a little bit annoying because maybe you want to live in LA and it's hard to find a job for a PhD in LA, or sorry, I guess it's harder for a smaller city if you want to live in some part of town and some smaller city with less of this specialties required. Big cities, it's easier to find opportunities, but so that's one of the downsides. But eventually, it all works out, and it's better to do this route if you're interested. If you're not interested, then don't go to this route. Okay, so there's this nice career roadmap, which kind of organizes these different factors. Like there's many different types of universities. Some are like community college. There's a lot of tenure track faculty at community college that focus on teaching. Doctoral granting university. Most of the time, that means that they expect you to do a lot of research to maintain this flow of doctoral students, PhD students, and so forth. Everything in between. And then, of course, there's this, depending on where you want to be, is a factor. Some people don't care. Other people do. And then there's other details, like there's some subtleties in each of these different types of colleges. We're at an interest of time, I'll just refer you to this nice world map here. Then, depending on the university, they might expect you to do a lot of research and publish a lot of papers and/or books. They might expect you to bring in a lot of money by writing out a grant, asking for someone for money. And like the Department of Engineering, the Department of Defense, Department of Energy, National Science Foundation, that's the engineering sources are, and industry as well. They expect you to bring in this money so that you can manage your lab, bring in students and so forth. Okay, so about the evaluation process. So if you're going in this pathway to become one of the leaders of the university, to both teach and pursue research and scholarly activities, you have to each year get evaluated over the 6-year period. And then the final step is that you submit a proposal or like a packet of all your accomplishments and all of your arguments on why you should be given tenure at the 6th year. And then it takes a year for that proposal to work its way up all the way to the university. So, and the main point is the main question everyone's trying to answer is, are you, the tenure track candidate for tenure, an asset to the university who meets the mission, either teaching emphasis or research emphasis? That criteria hopefully is clear, and over the 5 or so years, your colleagues and mentors have been helping to guide you on the different requirements and strategies you should, and time, what ways you should spend your time and focus. So the 3 basic areas for universally across all institutions is that you should have some teaching focus, some teaching accomplishments, some research or scholarly work accomplishments, and some service accomplishments. So those are all kind of straightforward: teaching, research, service. So the question is, how much time or like accomplishments? Yeah, the time that they're both similar. That you should spend your time and focus on different things depending on the university. Here at UC San Diego and other big research schools, they expect their faculty to spend the vast majority of their time and effort and results in research. What does that mean? At places like UC San Diego, money. It's literally money they want from the outside, from the Department of Defense, from the Department of Energy, from the National Science Foundation and others. They want to see these grants coming in to help support their research. And also you should be publishing papers, peer-reviewed papers on this research topics. then maybe a little bit of time teaching at UC San Diego. And then there is some service, meaning that they help for graduate admissions or help the faculty hiring and other random administration stuff. And, but if you don't have a very strong results and production in terms of external funds coming in or papers being written, then you won't get tenure at UC San Diego. And that's similar to all the UCs are similar. San Diego State is it used to be different, but now we're starting to try to be like UC San Diego. Gaps happen, and there are formal, I don't know if you guys can see that. Yeah. And there are formal, okay, that's true. And there are formal procedures for this. Yeah, there's formal procedures for this. And you have to be careful. You have to make sure that if you take a gap, personal reasons is one that's possible. For me, I took an extra year for COVID. So you have to just make sure to follow the procedures and also get feedback on whether they will hold it against you anyway. That might happen. They say, oh, okay, yes, technically you have this extra year, but we don't like you, so we're gonna still hold it against you somehow or something like that. Unfortunately, there's a lot of personal considerations, a lot of politics that can happen sometimes. So just be careful, as in everything. Good question. Okay, so another extreme, there's a lot of variations. Another extreme is that for us, anyone here, USD, University of San Diego, that's a smaller liberal arts school. For them, they want them to spend a lot of time on teaching, developing curriculum, keeping the students, making sure the students are getting their tuition worth in their classroom. But they also expect them to do papers. Some get money, but unfortunately, it's weird that they would rather have more papers and publications than more money. And then they also do a lot of service in terms of helping to run the university. So these are two extremes, but there's a lot of variation in between depending on the university and the institution. I guess I would be San Diego State would be closer to this on the spectrum, but also some teaching is it's historically been a teaching school. So we're kind of progressing in this direction at San Diego State. Okay, so case study, me. This is me right here, believe it or not. 20 years ago, yeah, no, more than 20 years ago. That's me. And okay, so I graduated from high school, that's me and my brother. And then I went to community college for 3 years. Why? Because my parents had no idea how to do what to do to college. I'm like, my senior year, second semester of my senior year, I'm like, should I go to college? Or like, I don't know, how do you do that? So the point is, if you may know by now, that's way too late, right? You have to like do all these tests and get on the right tracks and everything from the beginning. So that's why I went to community college. And can you guess which one of these guys became a professional nerd guy? And okay, so then I transferred. I met my wife. She's back there at UC San Diego. I mean, we got married recently, but we met here 20 years ago.
But it was also a long process.
What? So yeah, I got here, and then so here's my McNair days. Here's my cohort from McNair. We went to Penn State. She is now at University of San Diego as a ethnic studies professor. Celeste is at USC as a history professor. Enrique, he's like a consultant. I don't know. I mean, I heard from him, he's like a consultant. Jacob here, we crossed paths, like after UCSD, we crossed paths again at Stanford. And he's now in the tech industry. And then here we're all going from that walkway there. I don't know if this is still the same. We're all going to our McNair symposium over here that was. And yeah, so 3 of us are professors just from this group, and I'm sure there are more in that cohort. And, okay, so then I went to PhD at USC. And I love traveling there. So I went to Britain, Europe, other trips and stuff like that. And then I went to Stanford. Like I said, I went to China. This was my first time. And now I have my own lab at San Diego State. My wife, I finally got married. Here's my lab. Here's some buddies. And well, yeah, so last week I went to Vancouver, my first research trip since COVID. And this was us at the end of the trip after some study session. So yeah, to summarize, yeah, so these are all professional nerds. So it's true, you can become a nerd, you can be a nerd, but that doesn't mean you don't have to you can enjoy other stuff and be well-rounded in other stuff. So these guys are all brilliant people, but also, they like to have a good time every once in a while, especially after COVID. And so to summarize for you, you are UCSD McNair scholars. You bring valuable experience. You bring valuable experience both in life and just the fact that you have this access to all these top scholars that you are getting trained under. And there's the supplemental activities in McNair that are also building your capabilities and experience. So you guys are on the right track for anything. Your careers in industry, or maybe your careers in graduate school, and maybe even careers in faculty, you're doing great. So that's good. So like I said, and on top of that, there's universities across the country, top universities, everyone, they're looking for this type of background and experience. So keep that in mind. This option is there for you. And of course, you have to be very obsessed and to go do this crazy long-term route. So like I said, long-term route, PhD, 48 years, maybe postdoc is required, another 1 to 4 years, and you have to plan ahead for the faculty positions. So it's a pretty strenuous route. You have to really want this direction. And but if you do, you be like me, be cool. So yeah, so there's active, explicit efforts across the country to increase diversity in their faculty. I would love to see more and more faculty and departments filled with with people with diverse experiences and backgrounds. Everyone wants that, but it's going to take a time to build this pipeline. McNair is one of the best chances we have at doing this, so that's awesome. I'm glad to be both an alumni and hopefully help to keep this momentum going. Yeah, so that's all I had, and thanks everyone. And so is there any questions from the audience and or chat? I have a chat here. Let me get this. Okay. I'm only interested in research and in starting my own research lab at UCSD. There is such a thing as research professor, as I mentioned, but there's less research professor positions available than full tenure track faculty positions available. So it's kind of, there's another track to would be to work under a professor and be a research scientist under this professor. So those are two ways to stay in the academic lab setting and without having to teach. But perhaps you should look into teaching. I think it's worth trying. If you like the school and you like the material, maybe you would like to share it with be a teacher too. I don't know, maybe not, but I think it's worth a try. Any other questions? Yeah.
When you started your PhD program, were you certain about becoming a professor, or was it just more of a caution of the subject?
Right. I didn't know if I wanted to become a professor. I didn't know if I liked it that much in terms of all the other requirements of being a professor, like teaching and just always being at the university. I didn't know at that time though. Over time, it became more clear though. Yes?
What was the name of the material science internship? I think you had in Mira Mesa.
Mira Mesa, yeah. It's still there. Wildcat Discovery Technologies.
What was that like?
It was cool because at that time they were smaller And what they're like, it was cool because they had a lot of money and a lot of investment. So they had a lot of toys. So I had like access and I was playing with all those toys. And we're doing, one of my favorite things was that they literally had these little powders, containers of powders. And I built my own little periodic table of elements. And I was like, it was that like fundamental, because some areas of research are more specific, but this was so general. We were literally playing with elements. And then like I had various tasks like to build different like dispensing of these powders, ways to build these experiments. And what I liked was I could think of all these different directions to go in and all these things on my own. And I wanted to do it on my, I wanted to be the leader on my own rather than having to work under the PhDs. Yeah, but I think UCSD has a lot of, what are you studying now?
I'm an engineering major, but my focus is in material science.
I think you have you have access to all these cool internships. You just have to keep on staying, keep your grades up, keep your resume strong, like with all these little things that make you attractive. Just keep on applying, keep your eyes up. You have so many opportunities available. Are you working with in the summer research? Are you doing a project with someone?
Yes, I'm currently in a research lab.
With who?
His name is Darren Maloney.
Oh yeah, top. Yeah, these guys. These are all top-notch people. They may even have a reputation outside of the industry somewhere. Yeah, you're in a great start. And just keep on applying. Just keep your eyes out. Yes.
From the opposite of the other person, I'm much more interested in teaching than research. Would you still say that this is a good path, or should I look into something?
My wife has that experience herself.
So hi, I'm Alison Sanchez. I have a PhD in economics from UCSD. I went to UCSD undergrad. I was math and econ. Got a PhD in econ here. And I teach at USD. So it's a liberal arts, and it's much more teaching oriented than UCSD. And for people who are interested in the research aspect and are worried about teaching, just think about the professors that you've had at UCSD. Are they like phenomenal teachers, or do you never see them? Right, so the difference is like at USD or liberal arts, it's much more teaching focused, right? So our class sizes are a lot smaller. The largest class size we have at USD is 40 students, right? What's the capacity of Center 101? What's different, right? We're not weapons of mass instruction at the liberal arts colleges, right? It's a lot smaller, so you get a lot more student interaction. You spend a lot more of your time teaching. It's really, when I'm different than Joaquin, because I'm not first generation college graduate. Both my parents went to college. My grandfather was a professor, my uncles are professors, but even still, they're not in my field of economics, so I had a difficult time navigating the path in the field of economics. And I think one thing that I'm going to get to your question eventually, but I'm going to say there's a couple of things that I wanted to say first, which is that academia is a really elitist field, right? And the cards are stacked against first generation students because there's a club of individuals who keep getting into academia and they want to keep it their club, right? But it's not impossible. It just means that you have to start navigating by rules that work for you, right? Because they want to make it seem like it's a meritocracy, and it is to some extent. You have to be good, right? You have to get grades, you have to show prove yourself. But there's also a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes. Like I went to school with a lot of guys who were the sons of famous economists, and they had a really easy time getting their stuff published, right? And I felt really bad about it. So just an anti-gaslighting measure that you don't have to be like, I think I thought of myself as not good enough to do these things. And if I hadn't had a grandfather that was a professor, uncles that professors, or parents that really pushed me and said, no, you are good enough, I might have dropped back and said, no, this is not a field for me. But it is a field. Like if you have that initial, like this could be cool for me, keep pursuing that, right? Because there's lots and lots of different opportunities available to you, right? There's a teaching position out there for you, right? Where you can do a little bit of research and then spend most of your time with teaching, right? Or your research can be about teaching. Right, so there are professors out there who spend, they get a degree in economics, but then they go and work at a liberal arts university, and they spend a lot of their time figuring out new ways to present economics, you know, teaching instruction to students, right? And their whole research is oriented around students, right? So there are many, many different types of opportunities, and there is something out there for you if you are interested in it. And I think there's one thing that I will say about my path through, and I think Joaquin ran into this a little bit, but he's a little bit more mainstream than I am on some of this stuff. But there in academia, it's like there's set rules, like these are the steps that you follow to do this, right? You publish papers, and when you get into your PhD program, there's like acceptable research, like this is what we're studying, everybody. And then other research that you might have that's different is like, oh, why would you want to study that? So for example, I was very unique in that I'm from San Diego. I wanted to stay in San Diego after I got my PhD. Like Joaquin mentioned, like you have to go kind of where the jobs are in academia. I didn't like that model, it didn't work for me. So I had to do my own thing. I actually ended up staying an extra year in PhD, kind of hanging around, which was not a popular decision. My advisor didn't care for that, right? But I did because I knew there was a position at USD coming up that I really, really wanted. So I was just kind of like hanging out for an extra year, right? And I made it work for me. I got over to USD. I made connections there. They happened to like me. And that's how I got my foot in the door at USD, right? And that's not something that would have been prescribed at all by my PhD program. They'd say, you know what, it's your 6th year, you go on the job market, you get a job, and if Minnesota is the only place that hires you, Minnesota is where you're going, right? And I'm like, that's ridiculous. I don't want to do that, right? My family's in San Diego, I'm close with my family, right? I want to stay. I made Joaquin come to San Diego from Stanford, right? So there's a lot of different things that you really have to kind of like navigate around, and it's hard as first generation, right? Because you don't have anyone telling you these are the tricks to get ahead, right? Like I didn't know after I got my PhD that there's a certain way to write a paper to make sure that it gets peer reviewed by certain professors and not other professors who really hate you, right? Like, so there's all these little tricks of the trade that I know these people are telling, their family or their friends or whatever, they're getting them into this job, or they're getting them into that job, right? But you can do it. So I really encourage you guys to pursue these if you're into these different paths, if you're interested, because there's a lot out there that you're not told, but keep being persistent about it, right? Just keep going around, keep asking different faculty, right? Talk to the different professors that you have. They all have, every single professor has a totally different path, right? Some of them have like I was on the diversity committee, like there's like the path that like is mainstream, and they're on, like they followed all this step 1 through step 10 and they got their PhD. But there's a lot of people who are like, I worked for 5 years and then I got a PhD, and then they were an adjunct faculty and they had to really work hard to get out of that adjunct faculty cycle and into the tenure track cycle, and they did it, and here's how they did it, right? So talk to your professors, ask them how they got their PhD, tell them you're interested in getting one, tell them you're interested in being a professor, and don't accept no for an answer, kind of like, and don't let them throw water on your dreams. If sometimes you have to know when something they're telling you good at, like real advice, like it's possible, and when something that they say is impossible is actually possible for you. So just keep getting lots of information from lots of different people and pursuing that. So I'd say that there's a lot of different things you could do, and teaching definitely, like when you're getting a PhD, your faculty, like your doctoral granting university, like at UCSD, research is the goal, right? Like they're gonna be like, don't teach, do research. But if you really like to teach, do the research part, right? That's part of getting a PhD, but also pursue other opportunities to do that. So there's lots of different things you can do.
Did that answer your question, Brianna? She had the same question.
Oh, she had, so they look for people who are interested in teaching, right? So if you come to an interview at a liberal arts university and you're like, I hate students, I don't want to do anything with students, they're not going to hire you at a liberal arts, right? So for liberal arts, you have to be interested in teaching and display that by doing teaching as a grad student or doing, getting some sort of extra. They have a lot of seminars on how to teach well, which I know a lot of my professors at UCSD probably could have right?
All these teaching classes.
Like they have centers for educational excellence or teaching excellence, and just pursue those different opportunities, right? If you're interested in teaching, there definitely, I think there's probably a center for educational excellence or something like that, that teaching excellence on campus somewhere. Go to that center, find the faculty who are associated with it, and tell them what your dreams are, because those are the places where you'll find people like you that have dreams similar to you, and they'll tell you how they did it, right? So keep pursuing all these different avenues. You're on the right track. Okay, everyone.
Yeah, if there's no more questions, thank everyone. I'll thank everyone, and you're welcome. And yeah, so I guess Dr. Brown knows where to reach me if any of you have questions, or if we can talk right now if you want, and we can get more in contact if you need. But I'll be here. I mean, I'll be in San Diego too. Thanks, everyone. Dr. Sanchez will also be around too.
Love your answer about the teaching, and it's also gratifying that as a graduate student, you'll have opportunities to teach as a teaching assistant. You know, a lot of your PAs are graduate students, and not most of them. And so you can get through a PhD without doing a teaching assistantship. And sometimes you'll get a fellowship that will just be a research fellowship, which is fantastic, especially if you want to go on to be a professor or go into industry as a researcher. But it also doesn't allow you that opportunity to get teaching experience as a graduate student. For people like me, I have no teaching experience coming in as a grad student, and it was a really hard thing to learn. And so that TAing experience was really valuable for that.
Yeah, I think it's something too, especially like I said, like there's all these like unspoken rules in academia, like, and especially when you're in a research university as a grad student, you are there to help the faculty do their research. So they want you doing research all the time, and they're going to tell you don't spend any time on teaching. And that's great if you want to go to other R1 or top tier research universities, right? They don't really care about teaching. Like, oh, you TA, you taught one class, fantastic, check, right? You check the box. But at liberal arts schools, they want to see more. Have you taken time to think about teaching techniques or things like that? And that's something that's not necessarily valued when you're in grad school, because your focus too is totally on your research, right? You're trying to do a thesis or dissertation, right? Hard work. You're spending a lot of time doing that. It's something that you don't really think about. And it's something that I wish I left out. I just did some TA stuff just to get the $1,800 a month stipend. At UCSD, very generous and rolling my eyes stipend that UCSD gave me for teaching, and that was enough experience, along with some like my really selling myself on teaching at USD to get that job at USD. So it's one of those things, like what he was saying, you have to look hard into the future, and it's really hard to know what you're gonna like until you get there. So try to build as many paths for yourself, open as many doors for yourself as possible. And people pivot all the time. There's a lot of people who it's easier to go from a research university to a teaching oriented university than it is from teaching to research. But there are a lot of people who have come through the liberal arts who are like, I was at Harvard and I hated it, and now I love the interactions, right? Where there are people who are like, I hate students, I never want to look at them, I'm going to go to some R1, right? And that's, I mean, I think we want. But I'm just curious, what's everyone's field? Linguistics, very cool.
So molecular biology,
Wow.
sociology,
Psychology.
Psychology.
Okay.
Wow, so you really have a broad spectrum here. Very cool. Very cool. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Quick question.